Yo, when I spit bars in a raid, man, I go hard like Santan.
Welcome to our recording of the Touchline Hotspur pod. It feels like it's been a long time since we've actually had any kind of real action. It's been weird watching these teams kind of play their football still in other certain finals. Some lost, we had some tears, and some won. It is what it is. We still have a lot of things to talk about, so let's get into it. Si, how are you doing, man?
I'm embarrassed. For the listeners out there, I have a confession. I didn't hit record the first time, so we're having to start over again, which is a symptom of my tiredness, which is notorious for me. So yeah, man, I'm good. Happy to be here. Happy to also have seen the tears and the sweat of our frenemies down the road. So I'm here to lap it up, mate. I'm well quenched.
I'm not too well versed in courtside, but I suppose you've probably been busy with courtside Fracas as well, right? So
yeah, here and there. Obviously, my team, the Brooklyn Nets, are doing well, so we're happy times around here. So yeah, spirits are up for once.
I was listening to the main pod, and obviously they were talking about basketball in there, and I was thinking to myself, like, I wonder if I should just message Si on the slide and just be like, are the San Antonio Spurs any good? I might get into this.
Traditionally, they are, to be fair, but they've been bad the last 2 years. So yeah, don't support them. Glory hunt elsewhere, mate. It's not worth it.
I don't know about glory hunting in sports, to be honest. Dave, how you doing, brother?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm all right. I actually expected a summer of depression because obviously Spurs had a rubbish season. Ryan Mason picking all his mates, and then on the basketball side of it, my team got absolutely airbrushed out of the playoffs, the Miami Heat. So I thought, this was it. I was going to have to endure watching everyone else's success. But Spurs are doing their best to kind of keep me going. And we're going to get into the rumours about our good friend Antonio returning to London, because everyone wants to live in London.
Boy, my fellow Whig brother. Man, I respect it. All right, well, let's get started. Boy, so we've obviously had quite a bit of a stir recently on the timeline and our fans. I just had a random thought as well. Do you remember when Mason, for the rival fans, which may not have seen this, like Mason got a lot of stick for playing Eric Dier, even though he's making mistake after mistake, and then he's pictured going on holiday with him, private jet, ladies in hand, and you're just like, okay, but we've made the right decision, moving on, and not appointing the caretaker like certain others. Fair weather friend manager. But yeah, so there's been a lot of impatience on our fan base, so a lot of concern. I think it kind of stemmed from a lot of tier one sources suggesting that we were going to make our move, and we had a name which we were going to appoint before the end of the season, right? And so everyone's licking their lips, and then the timeline follows on. Less than a week later, Sky are reporting that we're in for Roberto Martinez. We're like, oh, hold on. And then we get the stat which comes out saying it's been 45 something days. I mean, the days go on. Obviously, by the time you're listening to this, it'll be Saturday, so it'll be over 50 days. If we haven't appointed a manager since we have appointed, or since we've had a manager, and which has been the longest spell for any top club. Firstly, Si, what are your thoughts on that? Are you getting impatient at all? Are you concerned about that stat in any way?
I'm not concerned at all. I'm more concerned with the reaction of some of our brethren who took the bait on that one. The whole statistic was just devoid of any context, and when you get into that territory, Grumpy Si comes out. So the group chat got a little bit more spicy for me. Just to put it into context, like the clubs in reference realistically are what? Chelsea, Arsenal and Manchester United. Obviously, Chelsea tend not to wait around when firing and appointing managers, and obviously Tuchel has done a fantastic job, so they're out of that equation. But if we look at our mates down the road, the Gooner boys, I'm pretty sure they would have hoped that they waited a little bit longer because they went from caretaker to supply teacher in quick succession. So Mikel Arteta's appointment, if we followed suit and did something hasty like that, I'd be pretty pissed off, more so than I would be if we dilly-dallied a little bit and ended up getting a Conte, for example. Outside of that, if we're looking at Manchester United, they hired their caretaker, so again that shortened the time frame. And I mean, he's doing well this season, but I'm pretty sure a lot of Manchester United fans would have again preferred them to go for a more established or higher profile manager. So I think patience is a virtue, and for me, as long as we do the right business, I don't really care how long it really takes, providing it's done before the Euros kicks off, just so we can start the ball rolling on some of the decisions.
Exactly that. I do get certain points made by obviously people who have been impatient, because I mean there is still a lot of work to do, right? And the longer we leave it, the less time we have to essentially clear out deadwood, to work on the team, style of play, etc., etc. Dave, our resident coach. And you appreciate the coaching side of it. You know, how are you feeling about that? Because there is a lot of work to be done still. Are we pussyfooting too much?
I definitely felt that at one point. I thought, you know, it felt like every other day there was a new name coming out, and I think the bottom of that was the Roberto Martinez moment in time. When that was the one time in the past 6 months where the whole fan base was horrified and united against of that kind of ilk. But I think, you know, as time has progressed, you know, it looks like we're heading in a positive direction. And I think we've got to look at it, you know, a bit like our recording here, which is our second attempt at recording tonight. I think also, you know, you got to look at this as the second attempt at some sort of rebuild. You know, obviously when we got rid of Poch, we did the whole get rid of you and bring someone in the next day. And, you know, that hasn't worked out. So I think Dan Levy's now turned around and gone, let's see if I can make this work to the best of my ability. Obviously, there's a sentimental aspect of it, Poch coming back. But I think it's looking like, you know, we're going down the Antonio Conte route, and that can only be a positive. So if we end up with the best man for the job, and he takes us in the right direction, then no one's going to remember the 50 days. No one's going to remember that. Do you know what I mean? And I'm sure United or Arsenal or whatever may have probably wished they waited out for maybe like an Allegri or someone else, you know, of that kind of ilk, before they made their appointments.
Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately where I stand on it, because it did feel like we were about to really appoint someone. It looked like that person was going to be Ten Hag, although I really wanted it to be Potter. He got ruled out, I think, around this time last week. Yeah, they looked like it was going to be Ten Hag, who I really didn't want. I wasn't convinced. I didn't like him for rational and irrational reasons. And yeah, like the timeline goes now that Pochettino has apparently been twerking for us. I think he is actually back in London, but I'm not completely sure. And he's been holding talks with Livy. And it looks like from the leaks that have come out that he's done some pretty bad damage to his situation at PSG, whether he ends up staying or leaving, because he's ultimately said he's not happy with certain things that have happened there. So there have been talks with that, and nothing's really come of it. And all of a sudden now, so yeah, all of this kind of came through. So we were looking like we were about to hire Ten Hag, and then Conte resigned as manager because he wasn't promised the funds, and now we've been talking with him. And tier one sources, even like 2 hours or so before this podcast started recording for the first and second time, pretty much confirms that the deal was almost done. They're just haggling over certain staff wages and everything like that. And it's been said that Conte has been promised the funds that he didn't necessarily get at Inter. So Dave, I'll come to you first this time. Like Conte, I feel like he was most of our first choices once it did seem likely that he was going to join. What do you think he can bring? Because I am actually interested to hear your perspective on this because I don't think he likes them kids. I don't think he likes them kids. He does like his older, more professional players in their 30 plus. That's usually his criteria of signings, 30 plus. But you know, what can he bring to the team if he is appointed? I don't want to jinx it.
Yeah. I mean, if he does get the role, I think the main thing for me is the fresh ideas. Mourinho, when he came in, his ideas weren't fresh. You know, his style of play had been pretty set from the early 2000s, hasn't it? Yes, there's been a few tweaks here and there, but we knew what to expect with him in that respect. Obviously, Poch, before that, the rumours were that he lost the dressing room, players were getting bored with his training style, all that kind of stuff, which kind of flies in the face of recent reports where like players were excited about the possibility of him coming back. So I think with Conte, what we're going to see is should he arrive at Hotspur Lane or Hotspur Way, whatever it's called, we'll see some fresh ideas. And he's shown, especially in the Premier League, he's not afraid to try new things. We all know the famous story, he's getting pumped by Arsenal at half time, when he's at Chelsea, switches to 3-4-3, still loses the game, sticks with that and ends up winning the title that season. Yes, there were mitigating circumstances. Obviously, was it Chelsea didn't have Europe, and there was different things that people feed into that. But I feel like he's shown that he could be that kind of dynamic, and his style has evolved over the few years. His teams score goals. I think I saw a stat that his inter-team last year scored more goals than Man City. Now you can talk about the league quality, all that kind of stuff, but even going forward, he's been shown that he can create some really good patterns. I think that's the one thing that we didn't see last year from our team. We saw what they were trying to do defensively. They never executed it, but we saw what they were trying to do. But going forward, it was Kane or not. We literally became the Harry Kane team, like Pep, said a few years ago. And I think watching a lot of Conte's teams over the years, from a coaching perspective, there is definitely an emphasis on, where to be, at what point, how to receive the ball, what angles, in the kind of ilk of these modern managers, your Peps, and even some of the younger ones like Ten Hag, they have that kind of emphasis on, getting you to the final third. I remember Thierry Henry said this about Pep, that, he said, I'll coach you to the final third and then you be creative from there, and we didn't have a way into that, and we can talk about some of our players and the quality that we have in the midfield, all that kind of stuff. But even still, there was no direction in terms of when we win this ball back, here's how we're going to get out. When our counter-attack got found out after kind of Christmas, we were really devoid of ideas, and that meant even some of our more expressive players like Ndombele or Lo Celso or whatever, they suffered for that. And I think with Conte, you're going to see a few players really come into their own, because he's going to give them the structure and the resources to be able to work with. Do you mean a chef? Give a chef some good quality food, and he's going to be cooking. So let's see Ndombele and other players that we know have the quality. See if they can just really dig into some real attacking impetus. And like I said, a pattern of play, which we haven't seen at Spurs since, really, I feel like we haven't seen it since before maybe early 2018, 2019. Even the Champions League one, there was a lot of just,
dead football.
Yeah. We all know that we're in away for 10 months, was it?
Yeah.
Bad. We went from January to October. So there's definitely been a lack of that over the past few years. And I think that's what I want to see back. We all talk about the Spurs way and all that kind of stuff, which is, a bit of a myth anyway. But can we get our bet? We've got really good players up top, Son, Kane, like I said, and Ndombele, and even the likes of Oregon. He was in no man's land last season, after his injury. Is he going forward? Is he staying back? He didn't really have that confidence. So I think he's going to really bring out the best and the better players. And also, like he's already said I don't know if you've seen the clip where he goes, "If my players aren't prepared to fight and work for me, I'll kill them. I'd rather have 22 men. I'd rather have 22 men in my squad than 23. That's what I like."
Oh man,
That's
his
one.
personality can go one or two ways. It's funny because I have called him a man child. I stand by that, from one man child to another. But this is the thing as well. Like, what can be equally as interesting, if not more interesting, is the off the pitch stuff and how he is with Levy. I really think this could either be a really loving relationship, and Levy's just kind of forced to back him because he's realised that he does need to relinquish that control and, you know, listen and really back a manager as best he can. Obviously, there are financial restrictions with it being COVID. We have secured an investment of £250 from some American banking thing to cover a loan which took out and to help us run as a football operation again. So hopefully that can help in the market. And we've got a director of football, which he worked with at Juventus. And I don't really want to get his name wrong, but his name is Fabio Paratici. I hope I got the pronunciation right. Worked with him at Juventus. It was funny what you say, well, not funny, but it was good what you said about Ndombele, Dave, because what it made me remember is that he wanted Ndombele this time last year. And I believe Fabio Paratici was responsible for bringing Pogba over from United to Juventus, and obviously them both helped nurture Pogba to what's believed to be his kind of club football peak. So maybe he doesn't hate the kids as much as I say earlier, after all. But again, like off the pitch, Si, how do you think this is going to go with Levy? And what difference potentially could Fabio Paratici want? Because we've been we've been talking for Luis Campos for probably about a year now on this podcast.
A couple Meg the Stallions in the group chat. Stallions.
Honestly, like he could be Bay, he could be like anything, but there's been rumors that he might go to another club. I pray to God it doesn't happen. But yeah, how do you feel the dynamics would be with Conte and Levy? Do you think it can work and be prosperous? Do you think Fabio Paratici will be positive? And if so, how?
So this is an interesting one, because I actually feel like this whole situation is one that Levy has repeatedly shown that he excels in. I think if we go as far back as Martin Jol, we had Damien Comolli as director of football. Brought in some of our most notable players of that generation, Berbatov, Modric, those type of names. And we really managed to build a squad that had a dynamic that really accentuated new ideas. Obviously, a few years into that, Comolli goes off, ends up at Liverpool, gets Henderson, all of those type of guys into Liverpool, and the rest is history. So I think Levy has a bad rap for some of his more hasty decisions. But when the circumstances are right and it requires him to be quite prudent and shrewd and quite decisive in his decision making, he rarely gets it wrong. I think we tried to take a shortcut with Juande Ramos, getting him in after winning Europa League. That didn't work. It ended in our last silverware, but in terms of the dynamic, it just was flawed from the offset. But then that ended up in Harry Redknapp. So again, a situation where we ended up making the best out of a bad situation, and Levy was the one who pulled the trigger on that. Obviously, we look at the AVB situation and having Baldini as director of football. There were some positives to come out of that. If you think Dembele came through that, Vertonghen came through that, Lloris came through that. So when you really look at the situations that he thrives under in terms of acquisitions and sales and things like that, it tends to be when people write us off and when we feel like we're at our lowest of lows. A lot of people would agree with me with that, but again, like we've had the director of football role, and it usually peters out after 2 years. But Conte's window isn't going to be more than 2-3 years anyway. So if we can get it right, then we might see something special.
We might. My only concern with Paratici, like, I mean, we got some pros and cons. Just like on the surface level of it, I remember Conte under Chelsea when he was their manager, he was quite homesick because he didn't necessarily have his family there with him. I think they stayed in Italy, but if he's got one of his boys with him, maybe that could be fun for him, at least someone to bounce ideas off. But his recruitment strategy is interesting. Fabio's is, so he tends to love a free transfer
100%,
as opposed to like really kind of looking for those like young talents who could potentially suit a team in this certain way. Or playing Conte's system as perfectly as possible. So he loves signings like Sami Khedira, Ramsey, Emre Can, Adrien Rabiot. I don't know, like, how do you think that would play out, Dave? Because I mean, there are a good few free agents around. Donnarumma, Memphis, yeah. I was Sergio Ramos. I don't think he's signed a new deal yet. Ramos and Conte, or like.
Imagine that. To dare is to do.
Really and truly, right?
I think looking at the one player I'm interested in, is it Demiral, the Turkish centre back. I think he's at Juve. Only played 20 odd games last year, valued at about 25 million. I think he'd be worth a shot. And I think with is it Paratici? I think one thing that would be good is that, like you said, he's already got a relationship with Conte. He's already built a title-winning team with Conte. And I think it's going to be a situation where I think he can pull a few strings in getting in the players, especially whether it be from like the Italian league, which obviously Conte has just come from, whether it be defenders or, you know, whatever we might need to kind of supplement, because we obviously will know that Conte needs to be backed with some signings. But getting in, you know, it's almost like a Daniel Levy masterstroke. He's like, yeah, I'm going to back you. I'm going to get you some signings. To do that, I'm going to bring in the guy who gets all the freebies. You know? So it's Daniel Levy all over, isn't it? But again, we've got to be honest about, you know, where we are as a club. And, you know, if we need to look at lower down the market but develop some players, because I think one thing about Conte's system, it really, like I said, it brings out the best out of players. You know, you're very well drilled players. You know, look at what Victor Moses. No one ever saw him as a wing back. Do you mean? But he had a real good season.
Better wing back than Hudson.
Say again.
Better wing back than Hudson currently.
Oh yeah.
His legacy.
Yeah. One of my guys said that Hudson-Odoi runs like a fullback, and I can't unsee it. It's just straight line drive.
Wow.
Head down, just
yeah. So I think you know, you look at Victor Moses, you look at other players over the years where he's caused them to excel because of the system and how well drilled the system is. So I'm not necessarily like looking at these glamour signings that we want to see. Yes, you want talent. Yes, you want to see someone that you can look at and go, I'm going to trust him with my defence. I'm going to trust him as the linchpin in that defence. Because let's be honest, that's probably the first thing we need to address. But it will be very interesting to see how that bodes for us in the transfer market, knowing that there might not be as much money, but this loan deal that Dan Levy's kind of just secured for us may be able to kind of smooth over some of the cracks. And obviously, we also want to be shifting players. You know, you don't want to be going into the new season with Sissoko still in the team or in the squad. I'm sorry, it's just he can't be your backup option.
He might be our wing back, though, to be perfectly honest.
We'll get into that. I've got plans for Sissoko. I can't stop smoking at the moment because I've got an interesting question for you both. So with our current crop of players and Conte coming in, I'm going to exclude Kane and Son from this. But what are the top 5 players you think of our current crop Conte will help? Well, what players will thrive under Conte?
Wello.
And you'll have to say his name if you're thinking of a certain someone. I'm going to go first. I'll say Joe Rodon. I'm going to say Oliver Skip and Pierre Højbjerg. That's 3, right? I'm going to say Matt Doherty. I think he will. And I did just say his name as well. I think he will. And lastly, I'm really sticking my neck out because I don't think he's going to become a starter, but I think he's going to really improve Eric Dier.
Nah, I don't see him.
Oh, who wants to go next?
Oh, mate. I'll give it a go. Ndombele, definitely.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Reguilon as a wing back.
Yep.
Um,
Oh, there could be another left wing back that might throw up there as well. Missed
Sessegnon.
him.
Højbjerg, in the sense that it will take a little bit of the pressure off him. Having extra bodies in the midfield, I think the system's going to suit him better. And Tanganga, because he's a utility guy, he can play all across the back three. I think he can also obviously right back and play right back. I don't think he's quite a right wing back. I don't think he's got enough going forward. But as a player who has defensive qualities that fit across the line, we've even seen him line up at left back against Mane or Salah, I think it was, and kept him relatively quiet. So I think he's going to really do well. So yeah, that's my 5.
Yeah, I like that Tanganga show actually. If I was to have a sit, I'd love to see Tanganga at right centre back. I think he would be perfect.
And just on that. So my only criticism of Tanganga this season was the fact he was too narrow. Okay, he's not a natural right back. And now it could be said that every time I saw him too narrow, he was playing alongside Sanchez, who was a bit of a donkey anyway. So he might have been covering for him, but there was one, I think the Aston Villa game, you know, when we had that 4-4-2 rhombus lineup. Tanganga was there, right? And I'm watching the game and I'm saying, look, if they had Jack Grealish on the pitch that day, we would have got punished because he was leaving so much space out wide. Because he naturally goes towards the centre of the pitch because he's a centre back by trade. And as a right footer, you know, he's just kind of just leaning into that kind of, you know, he's going towards his partnership. That's the kind of way he's obviously developed. So I think right centre back next to whether it's, say, Toby Anademara or Skriniar or whoever it is that we get in, I think next to a dominant centre back, you form a great unit. We can actually see him thrive, and that could be one of the quote unquote young players who we look at in years to come and say Conte really helped push him on.
I love that shout. I've always thought with Tanganga as well. It's like if he was to get like experience and a more suited league, like I reckon if he was to play in like every game as centre back for RB Leipzig, he'd be mentioned in the same breath as Upamecano and Conte and them guys. I really do. It's just a case of staying injury free for him as well. That's such a big one. He's been injured most of the season.
I could definitely see him being the Azpilicueta type in that back three, because obviously under Conte we did see Azpilicueta playing as a right centre back as well. So most notably getting absolutely destroyed on the back post when we beat them 2-0, but that's to be expected when your centre back's not that much over 6 foot or 5'10" or whatever.
6'1".
But yeah, it's an interesting one. I do like that Tanganga shout. So I'll nick that. Yeah. Tongi for me is a no-brainer. As we've already mentioned, there are a lot of modern footballing elements to Conte's style. So I can just picture him picking the ball up from deep and playing little 1-2s up the pitch. Like I can see that, and playing as a sort of half wing type player as well. I'd say this one's tough. I think it's quite easy to say Reguilon because I can't imagine him being as bad as he was this season. Again, if we're going to compare to what we've seen from Conte in the Premier League, Marcus Alonso had a blinder, like assists and goals left, right, and centre. And we've already seen that Reguilon in the final third is extremely creative, and he has an eye for goal as well in terms of just the way he positions himself. He always has options to either pass, shoot, or cross. So seeing him develop in that role, I think that would be dope. Steven Bergwijn is the one that I'm most interested for. Either as like a sort of a wide forward, or dare I say as a wing back, because the guys basically played there all season for us anyway. So I mean, why not make the best out of Jose's tutelage and fully convert the man? And again, maybe we see a Victor Moses regen or whatever. As embarrassing as that is, I think that's 4 so far. I'm stuck between Dyer and Winks, if I'm honest. I know people get onto Winks, but if you find him the right position and the right role within that team, and if you do protect him with 3 centre backs behind him, what's to say that he can't improve?
Just on that shout, Winks, as much as I'm not his biggest fan, you guys know what I say about him in the group chat. I think from what I've seen with Conte's build-up play, because it's so methodical, not at the expense of creativity. Okay, you're going to have creativity, but because it's so well drilled and pattern-based, I think a player like Winks therefore comes into his own, because you can tell from Winks is a rhythm player. When the game breaks open and there's rhythm to it and it's all over the place and needs someone to take the game by the scruff of the neck, that's not Harry Winks. But when you're controlling possession, when you're breaking teams down through patterns and movements and whatnot, I think he excels in that kind of situation, which is what we saw when he first kind of came onto the scene. You know, that Poch side was brimming with a bit of confidence. I think when we went to Real Madrid and we beat them, I think that's the game that I think Harry Winks kind of really came into prominence. And we've seen it in his better performances is when we've kind of had a bit more, like I said, pattern to it. And I think that will suit a player with his style of play. Whether I like him or not, you know, we'll see what happens. So that's a good shot.
That's the thing. The pitch gets spread a lot wider when you have 3 at the back and wing backs. There's more vertical lanes. There's more space for those central players to drop a bit deeper. And again, they're going to have that protection to where the centre backs might spread that little bit, and him picking up the ball from those guys, he's going to be able to turn into a lot more of the pitch. And I think that's a lot of what hinders his game is when he picks up the ball, if someone's not immediately showing for it, or if there's not a tempo to the play, then obviously he takes a safe option, which for me isn't a bad thing, because I feel like recycling the ball is an underrated aspect of a midfielder's role. But there's more room to do that if you do progress the ball more methodically up the pitch. If you're looking for these really quick transitions all the time, obviously Harry Winks isn't the guy for that. That's where a Tongi or a Lo Celso, when he dislodges the crayons up his nose, that's what those guys are there for. Harry Winks is to recycle the ball and to create a bit of tempo from a bit deeper. So yeah, man, I'm hoping to see something from him. Otherwise, he's going to be one of the prime candidates to get skipped over, if you will. Fun.
That's what I'm most excited about as well, because we've been bickering like what is the formation best suited to our team. Some have said 3 at the back. I think it was actually only me that said that. I'm not sure. Most others it's 4-3-3, but I think the base of what Conte loves is a more 3 in the midfield. He doesn't really like playing a number 10. He almost forced Eriksen there and it didn't work. And yeah, it's just not his style, where he's very, very good with box-to-box type midfielders and a nice holding, recycling midfielder. And to be honest, that could well be key in unlocking Ndombele and Lo Celso playing in midfield together and getting these patterns of play, these triangles, which he really loves in his team all over the pitch. And yeah, I'm really excited to see that. So I think it can really work. But that's exciting times. I really hope that we haven't jinxed it and Levy kind of pays his staff what they need. Yeah, man. So we're going to move on. We've got exciting times ahead. Not just their managers, but general football. So we've got a few of our players involved in the Euros. We had Joe Rodon play against Benzema last night. He did quite well. Just trying to think like who could kind of up their market value. Like this is why I'm glad Sissoko went to the French like instead of Ndombele now, because Ndombele is going to be in the summer. He's going to be hungry. Sissoko might be getting minutes for Deschamps, increasing that value for potential suitors in the summer. So I mean, like, who do you think could shine for us? I'm trying to think who else is in the Euros. Like Kane, hopefully he doesn't get injured. Was it Bergwijn didn't make the squad? Damn, like, do we even have that many players in the Euros? I'm not even sure.
We've got Mr. Wells himself, Gareth Bale, who technically isn't our player because I want that guy out of there, mate. Like the 11 goal contributions do not fill me with any difference of opinion in how his season has gone. It's just been an absolute waste of time. So I'm hoping he sort of obviously the rumor was that he was going to retire after the Euros and try his hand at professional golf. More power to you, mate. Like just seeing Gareth Bale in a Spurs shirt again next season is going to be a bit weird as far as I'm concerned. Send him back to Madrid, man. Like I hope he has a really, really good Euros and they realize that, oh yeah, there's a little bit of space here for him because
he loves him, don't he? So
exactly.
Ancelotti mentioned him like 3-4 times in this press conference in about 20 minutes. So
can't wait for him to go, man. Like genuinely, that's what I'm keeping my eye on for the Euros is to see if Gareth Bale makes a good impression. So Madrid is stupid enough to take him back because, yeah, man, it's a waste of time. Put that money elsewhere because, yeah, man, like international football for me is dead in the water. Like all the discussion about the England squad doesn't really fill me with any excitement or enjoyment. I think when you see things like Trent Alexander-Arnold getting injured in a friendly and being out for 6 weeks with like a heavily torn quad or whatever, you're just like, yeah, man, the season's been too long. The season's been too long, too congested for me to really feel like there's going to be any benefit to any of our players playing in an international tournament. So it's one of those ones for me.
We got a few others as well. You got like Ben Davis, Pierre Hooiberg, Toby Alderweireld with Belgium as well, who could really suit. I mean, would you want them to kind of boost their value in the market, or do you think Conte could work with some of these players, though? Welsh Mafia or nah?
The Welsh Mafia is down to 1 now. Joe Rodon is flying the flag. Bale is probably going back to Real Madrid, and Ben Davies, he might as well retire. I don't like him at all.
We need a left.
Could be worth a little 10 million.
Okay, I'll take 10 mil. I'll pack his bags. I'll help him get to Gatwick or Heathrow. He tells me which one he wants to go. He can go from London Luton if he wants. But no, Ben Davies, it's one of the ones, right? I just I can't get any joy watching him play. He's quite a negative player in our system. He's always been pretty much a backup. People have talked about this shift to left centre back, but the times that we've seen him play there, over the past couple of years, haven't filled me with any joy. I think it was the Wolves game when was it Wolves? And I think when they equalised late, but all game he was getting ripped. He was getting pulled out of position, left, right, and centre. Excuse the pun. Now, obviously, you could say if he hasn't been training there full time, so maybe that's part of it. But I just don't think he has the requisite skill set to be in a team that wants to be contending for a top 4 place and some sort of silverware next year. I don't think he's at that quality. He may thrive at a lower league.
He's legitimately one of the only players in our squad who, like, if you ask me if he needs to go, it's first name on the list. Everyone else, like, I can temper the hatred for, but he's finished, man.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done with him. So Joe Rodon is flying the flag for Wales next year, and I'm okay with that. I think he's a good talent. I don't think he's going to be starting many games. Obviously, we've got the Conference League where he can wear the captain's armband as much as I don't care. He can lead. He'll probably be the most experienced player on the pitch for some of those fixtures. But I'm thinking about Troy Parrott. So he's playing for Ireland. He scored 2 goals tonight. I had a quick look at the goals earlier today. Did very well. He did get a bit greedy looking for a hat-trick in some of the game as I watched it. But yeah, he's got 2 goals today. Can he? I think he probably needs another loan, if I'm completely honest. So that's one for the future. Also, don't forget our South American contingent. So Foyth and the Celso, they're going out. I think they've got Copa America. Foyth is an interesting one because we've all seen what he did for Villarreal. The question is, do we keep him? Do we sell him? we know that they're going to want to buy him, and we know we can therefore get a little bit of change out of him, and we need as much, pennies as we can get. So, do we do that, or like I said in the group chat, do we see him as a right wing back? Because we all know
he's getting sold like that. That for
That's
me
the
is
annoying thing with Foyth as well, because they've got that option to pay 30 million euros for him, I believe.
Is it 13?
It's in and around that, which he's probably worth double that now.
Yeah.
And if he performs well in Copa America, that's why he's worth.
Did you say
double
13, 1-3?
Yeah,
1-3.
Wow. Yeah. That's a bargain.
Pennies.
Yeah.
Pennies.
So I think there's a few of them out there, and obviously the main ones, we just want everyone to come home safe. Tony Bellew side, we just want you guys to come home and get home to your wife and kids in one piece. You don't want Harry Kane having another injury, because when Harry Kane, have you noticed when Harry Kane gets injured, his wife gets pregnant. That's all I'm saying. I'm sure we don't need another Kane child. So I think if he can obviously have a good Euros, and I even thought about it, because he keeps going on about, I've got all these personal awards, the Golden Boots, I want to win something as a team. And he's like, I won't be able to get that at Tottenham. I'm like, well, if England ever slipped up and did something right and ended up winning the Euros, give him a taste of team success and then bring him back to Spurs and go, right, now do it here. You don't have to go.
Exactly. Give him the armband.
All that.
Let him do the team talk. Sparkle out, guys. Let's go.
Yeah.
Put him back on free kicks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we need to.
I hope he just earns another well-earned Golden Boot at a major international tournament. He may even pass it across. He may not. He may end up just earning a few more millions for Man City to pay for him.
That's a good point. So watching the England game yesterday, the bits that I did watch, and there was a whole kind of thing. I don't know if you guys saw it on Twitter. I think maybe one of the commentators or the guys in the studio mentioned about him dropping deep. I think he might have been even right. Said how this is not Spurs. We don't need you to drop deep to link up play and do all that. The creative stuff. Now, is it them taking the jab at Spurs, or do we think that he needs to maybe tailor his game for England? Because we do have obviously the English midfield and attacking options are pretty strong. So maybe he doesn't need to do that. So it'll be interesting to see if he adapts his game, because I saw there's a few times in the game yesterday where he just faded out because he just kept going deep, and everyone was like, "Mate, we need you up top." We got Grealish there, we got Mount, Mount was playing yesterday, but they got Grealish, they've got Bellingham. I think he's going to be a real top talent.
Unreal.
He's absolutely his potential is incredible. He's 17 years old, and he just got Young Player of the Year in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's so annoying we didn't go for either him or Eze, but it is what it is.
Eze is the one that for me, and it's sad. Obviously, he's injured at the moment, but that would have been someone I would have said, look, in the off season, can we go and do a bit like how we did with Delhi? We got him in early, and obviously he's given us his best few years, to start off with. I think Eze could have had a similar impact in our team, but I don't know how Eze would have worked in a 3-5-2. So maybe it's maybe we'll see, we'll see something different.
Is that a mention of his name? Even that he didn't even come up earlier, so him not being mentioned earlier, is that kind of an admittance to Delhi being gone under Conte?
Well,
I don't think he fits in the system. Now I think about it.
So I saw there's a lot of comment about him as a second striker, isn't it? That Delhi plays best as a second striker working with Kane. Now, if you're going 3-5-2, do you use that second slot as a second striker of Kane? Obviously, we're all assuming Kane and Son, but you want competition for places. You want the ability to change it up in the game. I think if Delhi does stay, he does definitely go into that kind of squad player role. And with the Conference League and everything else, I'm not saying he's going to be playing in the Conference League, but we could potentially have, again, a lot of games in a season where there's going to be injuries, there's going to be people suffering because they've played all the way through the summer after 2 COVID seasons. We need to make sure we've got the bodies on the ground. So it'll be very interesting. But if he does play, it'll be probably a second striker role. Because again, he doesn't have a 10 in that system.
It depends. It depends on what happens with Son. I think I've always felt like us going back to three at the back with the 3-4-2-1, if you will, was our best formation. And
That said, he did play very well in that. That's a good
precisely
point.
he played on the left side of that and caused havoc week in, week out. So I've got hope for Dele. I think his movement is always going to be an invaluable asset to have. It's just about having the creativity around him to find him early and find him often. And if you do that, again, if you've got Harry Kane dropping deep and Son and Dele running into space or sort of linking up with him, I think you've got endless potential in the way that you can build attacks. It's just about finding the right system and the complementary pieces around them to make that work. So for me, it's more important to see what we do with the midfield, because I do think Dele could find his way in the good graces of a coach who has been torn to pieces by him. So, yeah,
I think it's interesting. If we as football fans, we say, "Oh, he's a system player," we immediately see it as a negative. But I think players like Dele Alli are system players. At our pomp with that kind of free flowing, Dele, Ericsson, Son, Kane. I remember seeing when we smashed up Huddersfield, was it 5-0 or something? And we just tore them to pieces like in the first 60 minutes of the game. And I think it was at Wembley, and their movement was incredible. Those front four, no one could hang with. I mean, it was Huddersfield, so take that into context. But you just couldn't hang with them. And at point during that kind of run, that was what kind of we saw it this year with the Crystal Palace game. When they were playing and just movement off the ball. But again, it relies on everything else clicking. When it's not, then we see the worst of Ali. That's when we see the flicks don't come off. You see him being a bit more static. So I think, again, is he a player that if Conte finds a way in for him, he can thrive, because again, the system brings out the best in players, and he can be the creative outlet once you've got a functional midfield. Okay, Ndombele's in there, and Ndombele's very creative, and we know he's got that kind of mercurial aspect. You've got a solid base with Højbjerg or Skip next to one other, whether let's say it was Winks and Ndombele. So you've got those three in the middle, and then Dele playing off Kane, or whatever the case may be. You go from there.
And that's the thing. I don't think being a system player is a negative. I was a massive fan of what Chadley did for us in his short spell with us, because he was very productive from that left-hand side, chipped in with double-digit goals. Like, what more do you want from a guy who's not the most talented guy on the pitch, and who is a bit of just a sort of not a standout in any particular way? Like, sometimes you need those guys to steady the ship and to make other areas of the pitch function better. When you do have wing backs, you need guys who you need the front men to know where to be at the right times and what cues to take to shift infield to create that space for the overlap and things of that nature, or even in some instances when to stay wide to create the underlap. So again, Dele has shown that he's able to do that. If you give him instructions, he tends to be a better player. Whereas when you do just sort of give him free rein to do what the hell he wants, I think he does gets a bit lax and a bit complacent and showboats that a little bit too much. So yeah, I think there's definitely room for him, as there is for guys like Bergwijn to really show that they're not bad players. They just needed a system, and they needed to be coached into players that can be productive.
I'm going to side with that as well. I really think now that's convinced me, because I remember now that Pochettino did kind of copy Conte's three at the back to an extent. It was inspired by Conte at the very least, you have to say. And Dele, yeah, like you say, he absolutely did thrive in that and put Conte to the sword as well. So yeah, hopefully all is well in that. And Conte, for that, if you may, just to get a tune out of Dele again to levels he had before, then boy, he's going to be the Hulk Hogan of the new Spurs order, really, isn't he? So
I've been trying to ban that reference Hulk Hogan is in the mud. He is in the mud. We don't do racist sex tapes around here. Just for
he'll be the leader of the NSO.
He will.
We'll find a new nickname for him because
I am fully on board with Conte being the Eric Bischoff of the New Spurs order, though. Myself and
similar hairstyle there.
Precisely, myself and Scott Hall need a bit of a running mate, so the Havoc will run.
Yeah. I forgot to do my criminal record check on Hulk Hogan there, so apologies for this. I just remembered all his scandals all coming back. I was like, oh no.
Mate, CRB check got lost.
Oh man, it's bad.
Gonna mention the Irish guy in the UFC next. Fucking hell. All right. On that note, I guess we'll have to move on to this. I mean, I've been dreading this now for the last 50 minutes. We've been putting it off long enough, but we've got to kind of do an end of season rewards to an extent. I'll start off on a slightly more positive note because we did make a fair few signings in the summer. I thought Mr. Levy did quite well on paper without the benefit of hindsight. I'll put some nominees forward, even though I think I know the answer. So we'll have Gareth Bale, Sergio Reguilon, and Pierre Højbjerg. Who would you say would be the signing of the season?
Our best sign of the season is the next one, hopefully. I think overall, you've got to give it to Højbjerg. He played every minute of every game, didn't he, in the league? He suffered a bit as our identity was lost. He actually had a horrible first game. Was it Everton? He was absolute. Yeah, he was doo-doo.
Everton, Man City, he got exposed.
Yeah, and I think, let's be honest, we're looking at him and you go, right, he's a good player and and great in moments, but also he does need a lot of help. He needs things to be functioning around him, because he's not as quick as you'd want in that position. Conte would run twice up and down the pitch by the time Højbjerg gets to halfway. But you just kind of want to support him. So I think looking forward, I think it bodes well. He started off very strong, and even though the whole team regressed, I don't think his regression was as bad as other people, though there were some odd games where you just thought he was horrendous.
And Sai, would you second that?
I would, only because I feel like I have to be fair. I think a large part of how to grade signings is a bit of like the need they bring to the team, and obviously in that case, I would have probably said Reguilon.
Yeah,
we were all clamoring for a quality left back, which he did show in his first half of his season anyway, before his injury. But on balance and on consistency, I would say Højbjerg gets the nod, even though I do feel like he's been miscast as a player. I don't think he is as dynamic as some people assumed he was. I don't think his positioning is as astute as it could be. I think he is a bit more of a higher up the pitch breaker as opposed to a holding midfielder, which again some people miscast him as, but I think we had a good handle on. So yeah, I need to see a vast improvement from him, but as I said, on the balance of games played, consistency over the larger sample size, it's got to be Højbjerg with the shit tattoos.
With all the flash designs. Yeah. My word.
He's like a fucking sticker book. It's weird.
So we're going to move on. So we got the worst signing. This could... nominees thrown forward. I agree with the Pierre Højbjerg being signed of the season, by the way. But worst signing, we've had Joe Hart. I was going to say Joe Rodon, but I think that would be way too harsh. I'll even throw in Gareth Bale in there again because of the expectation of when he first signed. I feel like I'm missing someone here. I'm not going to say Reguilon or Højbjerg.
Number 2, I'll help you out, my brother. number 2. We don't need to say his name.
No, I was trying to set you up to say his name.
Listen, right? You guys have welcomed me in this season. You've been very good. You've been like brothers to me. But I made a pledge, and I will not say the guy's name until he improves or gets out of the club. But no, number 2 has to be the clear winner and loser in this kind of ranking for me. And to be honest, I'm not trying to like just get him because of anything. I just think, again, expectation. Like you said, we wanted a competent left back, and we looked at the right back position and like, oh my gosh, he's making so many mistakes, letting us down. We don't have any cover. Can we get someone in who can at least give him a decent level of competition? And we didn't even get that. You know, whether we played him at wing back a few occasions, obviously played him as a more conventional fullback, and he just didn't do it. And the fact that Tanganga, a young and upcoming centre back, was a better option. The fact that even Sissoko, when he filled in there, looked a bit more dynamic than he did, was a bit of a weird one. I think the low point for me was the Arsenal game, the second derby, where he was just put on toast by Tierney every single time. It was very painful.
I hated that it was Tierney as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's one of the ones where anyone else, but the fact that it was in that game against that player.
I mean, that's their best player, to be fair.
Yeah, the thing is, you know that. You all know that.
Like, who's best player?
We know what they're going to do. We know they're going down the left. We know he's going to try to get down the line and try to get crosses in. He's a good crosser of the ball. One of the better crossers of the ball, you know, from a fullback position in the league. Let's be honest.
So we league and expected assists apparently as well. Shout out to Dan Cougs.
So I think for me, seeing how he just struggled to get any sort of handle in him, he doesn't have much pace. I don't know what the Wolves' tax is on players, but yeah, it just hasn't worked out for us. But yeah, like I said, for me, Gareth Bale, I don't put him in that category of the worst, because I said to my mate, I said, if we get 15 goals out of him, I think that's a decent enough season. He got 14. I think a lot of his play was mismanaged. I think he could have probably given us a bit more over the course of the season, but our departed manager had different ideas. So, yeah, it has to be the guy that played at right back.
It's a tough one for me. Even though Bale did look great on the stats, I would still pick him because it was just the way he removed himself from accountability nearly as much as Dier. I know when he articulated himself quite badly when he was last on international duty, he did that interview, and he's been a huge part in how bad our season has been, even like more so than Doherty for me, because he wasn't even fit for the first half of the season. Whether he could have done more or more or not to be fit, we don't know. But I mean, signing to try and force your way into the first team and try and claim you should be playing while you were clearly unfit, you were dodging 50-50s, you didn't even want to be touched. You were a bit precious about that until the final weeks of the season under Mason. You could stat pad against some of these smaller teams. That's fine. It just didn't impress me much. And yeah, for me, I'd say Bale. How would you look at it, Si?
Again, I think one of the things that I have to always do is sort of apply the context of what my expectations were. I didn't expect anything from Doherty, to be honest. I thought Tobes gassed him up to no end, and I just didn't see it. He was.
To be fair, I thought he was going to do really good.
Really?
As a Mourinho signing as well, because I used it as justification for Mourinho's being backed, because he was clearly at least one of Mourinho's top choices. And then he managed to bring him in. It seemed like he had a plan for him at least, and then I
thought I genuinely always thought he was destined to be second fiddle. Like Aurier in Project Restart was probably one of the standouts in terms of improvement. The lopsided fullback approach worked really well for him, and we managed to cover up his deficiencies and also accentuate his strengths. And I didn't see how Doherty would fit into that. And again, over the course of the season, we looked best when we had two fullbacks who got forward and were able to get back. And Doherty isn't that guy. So although he was shit, I can't pick him, just to be fair. For me, it's that Vinicius Janssen youth, man. Like, that was complete and utter waste of time, waste of money. And the fact that he celebrated every goal in the way that he did just pissed me off.
Great
What
part.
is this Mbappe regen stretched out? Like, he's like pro clubs Mbappe. It's like everyone makes their guy either really tall or really small on pro club. And he's the extra tall, extra lanky, not pacey, not techie, not anything, just nothingness player. Like, and I hate when we do this thing where, again, like, nobody really knew anything about him, but obviously his name sounds sort of cool, so people hype him.
South American.
Precisely.
About him.
The little screw face, the favela scar, all of that. It's like, I can't get with it, man. It's tedious. It's like we're gonna go into this summer again, whether Harry Kane stays or not. We're obviously gonna try and get a new striker, but we're also gonna have that conversation about the backups again. And please, oh please, can we stop going for these no-name dons? Like, I'm tired of it. I'd rather us just go and get some washed-up veteran who gets overpaid but delivers just some sort of stability up top when Harry Kane or whoever else is our striker is out of the team.
Would you not say Vinicius did deliver when he played in most of his games, though?
He played against Bulgarian plumbers and Portuguese farmers or whatever teams we played. It's like, come on, man. Like,
because you could argue he was signed for that.
Where did it get us, man? It got us Conference League in the end. Like, we got knocked out of the Europa League embarrassingly. Like, there was clear lack of confidence in playing him in games that actually mattered. He played the qualifiers, he played some of the early rounds in the cup competitions, but realistically, it's just not that to me isn't a backup option. That's not a rotation striker. That's just a body to throw on the pitch because you want Harry Kane not to play. But Harry Kane still ended up playing some of the qualifying games for the Europa League. He still played too much in the cups. Like, literally just Janssen 2.0 with a little bit more Samba flair. Like, it's dumb. It's dumb. I'd rather just see Son just play as our striker when Kane is out. I'd rather just that, because at least you know what you're going to get. It's a name you can trust. It's like blue magic. Like, you know it. You can get behind it. Like,
guarantee it.
You can guarantee it. Like, it's going to deliver some sort of high. You get what I mean? That Janssen, man, send him back. Send him back.
Because that's what I mean. Janssen is such an offensive thing to be called, because I don't like, how did he ever even score a goal from open play? That was,
I think, like one, but he got even less minutes than this Vinicius guy.
Yeah,
that's one of Poch's biggest failings. I can't lie, man. Like, I feel like he could have utilized that kid a little bit better, man.
I need to know why Mourinho didn't utilize Vinicius more, though, because I felt like he could have offered more in the league and in the cups. There were games against West Brom and Aston Villa. Aston Villa, obviously, much closer to the end of the season, where he was utilised. And I do give him the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, moving to a different country and not speaking much English, having to settle in, blah, blah, blah. Whereas Gareth Bale didn't need to do that. He knew where his family is. Like, he was accustomed to the league. He knew where the golf courses were. I know, another golf joke, so original. But yeah, I feel I've got a lot of empathy towards Vinicius. I've got to
it's
say,
the same with Jedson though. Like Jedson got brought in
because I don't think he underwhelmed me in terms of expectation either. I felt like he pretty much. I mean, it's a slight reach, but he pretty much did what he was brought in to do for me.
I think it's just as damaging to just not be thought of. Like, when you think of this season, can you remember what a Vinicius highlight is?
No, I forgot about Vinicius, to be honest.
Marine standing there celebrating like Mbappe, but like I forgot about Vinicius too, but because Mason decided to cast him aside, I didn't really get any clarity on that either. But
I'm pretty sure like Jedson was brought in to babysit for Mourinho, and Vinicius was there washing his dishes. You sometimes need like house help to know the language, to know the culture, to cook your favorite meals and shit.
They were here on work experience.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh man, I'm so glad to see the back of that. Just a waste of time.
So we've all said 3 different names there for the worst signing of the season. So we may have to put that to a vote to the wider group, to the audience. So I mean, yeah, for worst signing of the year, Bale. Dave's saying number 2. I'll do the grace, and you're saying Vinicius Janssen.
Yeah,
such a harsh nickname, but we'll go at that more.
Go stick to it, man.
Fair play. I respect it. All right, we'll wrap up with the team of the year. A fair few players are going to be self-explanatory in this, but maybe some not so much. There's going to be a certain back line which is just going to be sick in my mouth the whole time just thinking about names. We'll start with the goalkeeper, team of the year.
Joe Hart.
Sober Hugo.
Oh my
Paulo Gazzaniga.
Just a note on Joe Hart, the scout.
The one that didn't play. That's
yeah, the one that didn't play.
Alfie Whiteman, best hair.
Shoot from distance, it goes in against Joe Hart. Still has been the same for the past 10 years. It's so bad. Remember Marine when they nearly scored in the first 20 minutes or so, and it hit the bar, and he didn't turn around and look like, I knew that was going to happen. Yeah,
yeah, he shit his jokes.
I despise that guy. Like, oh man, Joe
Hugo's definitely the guy.
I just don't mind it. I don't mind him as a third goalkeeper, but please not a second choice next season. I beg. I don't care if Conte loves these over 30s as much as he does to have him second choice. I just can't see it. Dave, you want to say the right back team of the year? So I think he's had a good season, on Serge. He's much improved.
I think we go for
He's not extending his contract, but he's been okay this season, I think.
Yeah, he was actually probably better than last season, but obviously not at his best. There were some moments where it did look like he'd cut out a lot of the errors, but then, Carabao Cup final, why are you fouling Sterling out wide or whoever it was?
Oh, Sterling tore him apart in that game. I was trying to think of the glaring errors he had.
But think about it. Yeah, he tears him apart. Cool, that Sterling does that to a few players, whatever. But why do you foul him by the touch? When you know we're vulnerable from set pieces? Why do you foul him out there? Like, he does it literally every other game. And he puts us under pressure. The West Ham game,
Leicester at home for me was the most rash one when he did that penalty on Fofana. Yeah.
So we've seen him still have those absolute mares, but compared to the person that was brought in as competition, he was probably the standout at right back.
Centre back. I think one of them is quite an easy one because all in all, he's had a pretty good season. I can't remember him making any glaring errors apart from the penalty he conceded against Leicester in the reverse fixture in our last game of the season in Toby Alderweireld.
Yeah,
he's obviously very limited now, but I mean, compared to the rest, I think he's made the least amount of glaring errors. I think it's safe to put him in.
Made the least errors, but genuinely, I think this guy is cooked. Like,
oh God,
I want to see him improve next season. Just if he leaves too, I'll be a happy man, mate.
He's a player that needs to now be bailed out by his players around him. Not bailed out, but protected.
He's not a leader. He doesn't communicate. He doesn't talk. He doesn't command the line. Like, I'm tired of it. He was never Jan in the first place. So yeah, he's another one of those guys, man. Just at this point, he's living off a sort of reputation that has been gone for like almost 3 years for me. But yeah. He's the best of a bad bunch, but Dyer's what's it called? The other guy in that partnership, surely.
I think so too. Only based off his kind of first half of the season, where he was in everyone's team of the year. So obviously the team of the calendar year. He was in England squad after England squad. Southgate fancied him to hell. Mourinho fancied him. He was playing rather well, even though we were waiting for a mistake from him for a while. But when you look at the other options, Tanganga didn't play enough games. Rodon didn't play enough games and had a shaky start, I've got to say.
Eric Dyer is better in the high line. Let's just put it that way. Like, even though it leaves space behind and his recovery, you can't always trust it. He's better when we play on the front foot because
that's the problem. You got to play him in the high line, but then he leaves space behind him, so you need someone who's quick behind alongside him. Which usually
he is deceptively quick. But
yeah, but
again, it's the anticipation.
He doesn't turn quick enough.
Exactly.
So he's always half a yard behind the yard that he should have been. Which means you've got to play Sanchez next to him because he's got the pace. But we don't ever want to see him play again for Spurs.
Yeah, it's the process of elimination. See, who else has been there who's been performing badly, and then Sanchez it's been largely indefensible. I guess it's going to have to be Dier next to him for us, unless we just do a formation change and just have full backs and one centre back and try and pick someone else. Just be really bizarre Conte tactics.
So we got your regular Don at what's it called? Yeah,
Ben Davis, left centre back. There we go. Didn't have a bad game there, to be honest.
Didn't have many games at all. So.
Yeah, that'll be my choice actually. Second centre back, Ben Davis next to Toby.
Oh god.
So left back. Sergio Reguilon.
Yeah, the thing is, even in his bad games at the end of the season, there were still moments where you thought, oh, he's creating a few opportunities. He just didn't have consistent games that we were so used to seeing him in the first half of the season before his injury. And that can happen with young players who've never had to play through Christmas. They've never had to go through those pinch points that we have in the English Premier League season, and especially doing that with an injury. But yeah, he suffered in that respect. But we do need to see an improvement next year. But there are no other options at left back that are worth a shot.
None at all.
Done. Right. Right midfield or right wing.
So what are we doing? 4-3-3 or what? Or what?
Yeah. I'd say 4-3-3 is probably.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a little bit of a toss-up between, unfortunately, Lucas Moura and Gareth Bale.
I think our front three, in terms of over the season, that I actually had more confidence in, I would have to say Kane, Son, and Moura. Just because
100%.
I think Moura, as limited as he can be, he definitely played for the badge. And you definitely got the sense that he really wanted to make things happen. And obviously, you look at the Crystal Palace game, I think there was one other game around that time where he was putting a lot of pressure on winning the ball back high up the pitch. Even in the final, the Carabao Cup final, he was, arguably, the one player who was getting on the ball and causing problems. He got, 2 yellow cards for both their centre backs, didn't he? And then Ryan Mason took him off for Sissoko or something like that. But anyway, as you do. So I think more over the course of the season, probably had the better season. Lamella obviously chipped in with won the goal here and there. Bale got the goals that the others didn't, but Bale didn't play enough, I don't think. So yeah,
the Lucas Moura one for me writes itself because I think that again the bar was super low in terms of what the expectations were, and he, for all intents and purposes, proved that as a squad player, you don't really get better than that type of guy. Like, you can slap him in a more defensive role where you just use his engine to press people into mistakes, and ultimately he arrives in the right positions when Harry Kane drops deep, because he ends up not clattering into him on the 18-yard box. So it actually suited him for Kane to adjust his role, seeing as his incompetence doesn't really allow him to realize, oh, if I bundle my way into the path of Harry Kane, then I'm going to break down an attack instead of helping it. So I think he finally found a little bit of a balance and showed a bit more intelligence, to be perfectly honest, on a football pitch, and he was actually quite a useful piece over the course of the season.
Boy. All right then. I can't disagree. Because I mean I've got the other option as my worst signing of the year, so there's no way I can put him in. All right, Lucas Moura. I think he's just never going to be built for right wing, but if I have to put someone there, again, the bar's on the floor. There he goes. We're going to move to centre midfield. I'll start with holding midfield because it's, again, self-explanatory one. I'd put in Pierre-Emerick.
Yeah.
The two midfielders in front of him. And Ndombele.
Yeah. Yeah.
Easy. I think it's this third midfield option now where we've got options. So go through Lo Celso, Sissoko, Winks, and am I missing someone? Ali. Oh, yeah. Dele Alli.
See, I think this is interesting. I think it's interesting because we've gone through all three like divisions of the team. So your defenders, your midfielders, and your attackers. And at each section we've gone, there's one option where you go, well, you've got to pick someone. Do you know what I mean?
No, I'm gonna have to probably change the formation to a 4-2-3-1 because we did pretty much play that for most of the season, right? And you got another number 10 option in Lamela. So you've got Lamela, Dele, Celso, Sissoko, and I can see where this is going already.
I've got Winks and Højbjerg as a double pivot with Tongi as a 10.
Yeah, go for that.
That's my ideal team, to be fair. I just wouldn't call that as much as I do like Winks. I do love Winks, but he has not been good this season, and he's put the good soul name through the mud. Like I don't feel like any of my takes hold any weight now because I've put all of my stocks in him, and he's just let me down week after week.
It's a funny one because ultimately there's not been a combination over the course of the season that's actually worked.
No.
Even when we were winning, nobody really wanted to see Tongi as a attacking midfielder. Like no one wanted to see that shit. Like we all clamored to see him back at centre mid, and then by the time we did, we didn't have anyone to play in front of him anyway. So it was like, all right, cool, we're back to square one. I think, this season has been a bit of nothingness for our midfield, to be perfectly honest. So,
and I think this is it. Like trying to put together, our best 11 from this season shows how many gaps and how many things need to be corrected in the summer. Do you know what I mean? And we're going back to where we started with the managerial appointment. We need someone who can turn around to the board and go, look, this is how crap it is. Do you know what I mean? Look, I've listened to, the Touchline lads. They're talking about us, and they've just showed us how many, poor decisions there have been, in terms of keeping certain players on. So, like you said, there's been no real combination that works. And if that midfield is so porous and dysfunctional, no wonder we struggled. And the English game is all about midfield. You got to win that battle, and everyone's got to know how to do it. Well, no, from even before that, go back to Chelsea. Mourinho's first Chelsea team, even Man United in the 90s. Yes, they had Andy Cole and York. They had the quartet of strikers up top who can bang in goals, and obviously Cantona before that. But you get the midfield right, and that's a very good starting place. And I think we just didn't get that right at all. And it put a lot of pressure on our defence, and it put a lot of pressure on our attackers because they hardly got the ball in some games.
I'm gonna throw a curve in here because there are no rules. One of our loan players got voted into the championship team of the year. So
Oliver
I'm putting Skip in.
Skip in there.
Oh boy, I'm so excited to see this man this season.
Well,
but
Alfie Devine gets in the team.
not after that Fulham performance.
Yeah.
No, oh God, I'm excited for Divine's future as well. But if I'm looking at it as a 4-2-3-1 and what midfielders have been most effective this season for our first team, annoyingly, I'm going to have to go Højbjerg and Ndombele and then Lamela, because he's been the best performing out of those names, in my opinion, as a 10. And I fall back on the Carabao Cup game against Chelsea, where he pretty much just roared us into the penalty shootout. The game against Man United at Old Trafford, where he just caused havoc, not even with the ball, he just caused havoc and effectively won that game.
I can't believe we beat them by so much as well. Like that, I forgot about that result. It feels like ages ago.
And there's been other games where he's been effective. He was probably our only good player when we went out the FA Cup to Everton as well. I thought he had a really good game then. And that's when that's where the bar is. You're picking up like 3 or 4 good games, and that is the criteria. That is what qualifies you to be in that team of the season. It's so hurtful. Like I just can't think of someone who's been more effective, because disappointingly, like I put stocks in Delhi as well, but he's not really properly got going. Winks, again, if I'm being objective, I can't put him in. Lo Celso had quite a few good games before he got injured again, and then just got nosebleeds for every game he played since.
He's a shit Eric Lamela, basically. Like
less effective. I think from what I've seen of Lo Celso before this injury, I still have faith in him being a better Eric Lamela. But again, that's where the bar is. 4-2-3-1, yeah, for me, Højbjerg and Ndombele, Lamela. I can't believe I've just said that. What is my team? But boy,
that's fair. The other two write themselves.
The other two write themselves.
First half of the season, Son Heung-min and Harry Kane. Because
Son still ended up with 17 league goals. But again, a lot of that was that first half. He just blitzed his way through. But we all knew what was coming. We knew he was going to go on that 10, 15 game stretch where he doesn't really give us much. And I also think, a bit like with Bale, and I know Simon might disagree with me, certain players play better when we're playing on the front foot. Son is not great in a team that's playing defensively. He push us forward 10, 15 yards up, and he's devastating. Because he can get in behind. He's not. Yes, he has got pace, but from as an attacker, he's also quick mind. Like his mind thinks quickly, so he actually has quite sharp movement in and around the box. He can get into good pockets, and Kane picks him up. We saw in the Southampton game where we stepped up the tempo, and Kane got 4 assists or whatever to Son, whatever it was. So he's definitely he definitely needs to sign a new contract, because however the summer pans out, whoever comes in, he'll be a key player for us next year.
I think that Son situation is a funny one, man.
I think it's done. I actually think it's done.
Yeah. I mean, I have no doubt that he'll sign again. Just because, again, if we do manage to bag Conte, I think a few heads are going to turn. The pod where we spoke about Son being world class. My main thing in detraction of that tag when attributed to Son is he's only really good when he's playing on instinct, and I don't think that's the sign of a world-class player. Unfortunately, like in those sort of decisive moments, you can count on him, but you can't count on him consistently enough to put him on the same standing as, say, a Mane when he's in full pomp, or a Salah when he's firing on all cylinders. So when you go down the list of players who have justified that tag over the course of years, Son is better than the likes of, say, a Martial in terms of overall quality and production, but he's below the sort of bar of a Sterling, a Mane, a Salah for me. And again, most of these guys have had poor seasons this year, but Son for all of the glorious moments that he's had over the course of the season, the same habits have pushed into his game. And as Owen has so eloquently put it, he does at times just look like a luxury player. And world-class players who are luxury need to be hitting a goal a game at least. Otherwise, it starts to look a bit booky.
This is why I'm excited for him next season as well. Again, like I think he'll sign, especially if he knows that Conte is coming in and playing under Conte to be facilitated as the luxury player he is and centrally for the most part. That is a scary prospect. That's a really scary prospect, and he could well end up getting a kind of goal a game kind of ratio. It's going to be interesting. I mean, hopefully we'll be able to keep Kane as well when the new Spurs order will march on. All right, lads, I guess we'll wrap up there. Thank you for joining me. It's just come up to 10:30 in the evening. I know we're very tired, so more power to you for joining. And again, just to properly sign off, if you're not in the Discord community, as it stands, you are really missing out. Even though Tottenham haven't really got anything to smile about, there's been so much going on with the Europa League. There was tears with Man United. You've got a lot of banter flying each way with the Champions League win of the other team, and then you've got the Euros coming up. And I really can't stress enough, if you're not in the Discord community, at least in the chats, you really are missing out, because that's where all the jokes become. Well, all the jokes end up on there before they end up on the timeline. So really and truly, you need to get into it. Hit up the main pod as well. All the jokes are there, and be sure to listen to some more of our pods. It's brought to you by the new Spurs order. Peace. And love. There we go. Don't think you meant to do that. Am I still recording?